Welcome to Table Talk, the show about RPGs where two grown men talk about why they play with toy soldiers. I'm Zaf.
I'm Rillian.
Well, and welcome everyone.
You weren't supposed
Yeah,
to tell him about the soldiers. It's
look, okay, we both use minis. I know you do. Don't tell me you don't.
no, it's gotten to the point where somebody in my Discord even made a mini of my OC character, the Master of Trinkets.
Yes. See? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Or those. Yeah. I've gotten to the point where I'm painting the minis to my board games because I don't want to look at gray plastic anymore when I play them. It's that bad.
There
That
you
bad. But
go.
that's not the topic. Minis aren't the topic for this show. For this episode, I should say. Today we're going to talk about min maxers. And if you don't know what they are, hopefully this episode will kind of define them for you. You maybe you'll understand that there is a stigma against them, but they're not always bad. And we'll talk about why. So, really, and I want to ask you off the bat, what would you define a min maxer as? Like, what is one to you?
A min maxer to me, and it depends on how we're wording this. So I'll try to distinguish both here. But when
Sure.
I hear it just out in the wild on the internet, whatever,
Yep.
Reddit, Discord, whatever, if people are
Mhm.
complaining or talking about min maxers, usually they're talking about the people that have built their characters to break combat. And in that, they're putting all of their points in the exact right places to make them an expert in combat, but possibly sucking at the social encounters and stuff like that.
Mm.
So
Yep.
thus minimizing the numbers that you don't use in combat and maximizing the ones that you would. However, I would also argue that you could do that in exactly the opposite way. And I know
Absolutely.
I've got a character right now that I'm kind of trying to take that aspect or that
Sure.
approach. And he's very good at social encounters, but he's not the best in combat. But that's okay because he's in a group that does really well in combat.
Right. And as long as he can be a support character, that's not bad.
Right.
That's not bad. And there's something to be said, like I said earlier, like there's something to be said about the person who just maximizes out on combat. That's okay. It's okay. Asterisks. Okay. But I agree. I would agree with it's someone who focuses heavily on combat. I think that's definitely one way to min max. Min maxing the other way where you focus on social interaction.
Mhm.
Where it becomes a problem is where say the rest of the party isn't focused on combat, and so your character kind of falls apart in 80% of the game, 80% of the gameplay, where everyone's doing social interaction, your guy's just the brooding dude with a spear. Like that
And you
kind of
know,
sucks.
that makes sense if you're the tank or something or the big fighter, the
Right.
barbarian or the fighter.
Sure. But I mean, you could role play that still very well, and
Right.
that's up to the player to do it. And we'll kind of get into that. Another thing that I would define with min maxing is the person who focuses solely on their character sheet and only thinks that this is where I'm at. Like I've got my numbers placed exactly like I've got animal handling how I want it. I've got my stealth how I want it, and those are the things I do. I do those things. I do nothing else. It's like no, you still have perception. Nah, but I'm bad at it. I'm not going to roll it.
Yeah, fair
That's
enough.
not that's not how that works. Like
That
that's
that
not how
kind of
that
goes into our
works.
last topic though, where we were talking
Mm,
about playing your character because that's the way you wrote it. And it's like,
yeah,
okay, you can role play, like you were saying, oh, I'm not going to do a perception check. You can role play the ditzy character that's not paying any attention.
exactly. Yes,
Fine.
exactly.
But if you're just
Right.
saying, nah, I'm not good at it, I'm just gonna then
Hmm.
that's a whole nother issue.
Right. Right. Um, and then I I also define a min maxer as someone who believes D&D is a game that you can win because most min maxers I encounter are like when they fail at like when they get close to a TPK, they feel defeated and they feel like, oh, we lost. And they don't use it as an opportunity to grow their character and to further the story.
Right.
Like, name a time where Batman isn't beaten down to the core
Oh,
and
sure.
like it becomes a character defining moment, or how many times has Superman almost died to kryptonite? Like that happens because it creates good drama and it's a role playing game with ROLE. Anyway, uh, we could dive down that rabbit hole. So, what would you say? Like, if you encountered someone who was min maxing, how would you encourage them without like calling them out, how would you encourage them to play a little differently?
Well, in a lot of my games and stuff,
Mm,
especially the ones I write, I like to include puzzles, both in social interactions, combat situations, and or just if you're in a delve, you find yourself up against a puzzle where it takes not only the player but also the character smarts to sometimes get past them. You can
mm.
ask the people that have played in some of my one shots how the bubble room went,
Okay.
how the bowl that said I'm thirsty went. I bet you can tell me the answer to that one real quick.
I've played that scenario. I've played I've been there. I've done that. And it's mm,
It took
it's
them a
fun.
good 20 minutes sitting there with hints to solve the damn water bowl.
I encountered that puzzle multiple times in my career playing because it's a puzzle that gets around a little bit.
Sure.
There's variations on it.
Sure.
And I encountered the first time I encountered it was with a DM who's a good friend of mine. And then we were playing with a whole different kind of group, and he looked at me and he's like, "You have to sit this out." I was like, "Sit what out?" And he goes into describing the room and that there's a bowl and it says I'm thirsty. And I was like, "Y'all figure this out.
This was
I'll
on a
wait."
live show too, and it took him
Ooh,
forever. It was
that's good.
hilarious. It was
It's
hilarious.
good, especially if like chat's just scrolling and they're all up in it and like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And then like, of course, the players hopefully aren't looking, but
Yep.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was freaking hilarious. Anyway,
yeah.
but I will throw things like that at them. I will throw
Mm,
social situations that almost demand that you need to interact in some way,
sure,
and in that ways, it forces them into thinking, "How will I do this differently?"
sure. Yeah, I think the social interactions is the big one I do too. That's where I was gonna hit on, and that's exactly how I go about it too. So let's use the brooding fighter who's really like that's his thing is my sword, my shield, or whatever weapon he uses. You can pull them out of that shell by making a character want to interact with them in a few different ways, but especially if it's a character that sees them on their level, like it
Sure,
sees them as that fighter, as that warrior, and wants to interact with them, even if it's like challenging them to an arm wrestling competition. Well, they've put all those points in strength, and now they get to, go against this, town guard captain who
yeah,
wants to arm wrestle them or anything like that. Maybe it's something, I'm just going off the top of my head here, something like that is a really good way to encourage those players to do something different without calling them out for their behavior because you don't need to. It's not a behavior; it's the way they play.
right,
And I think it's really important to note that I think min maxing. I mean, it could have origins later than this, but I feel like the people that I've encountered that min max that happen to be great role players as well, or they love playing D&D or whatever tabletop game, and that's great. I love it and I encourage it. But a lot of them started with video games where it
sure,
pays to put a lot of points into your certain stats,
and you can get
especially if you're
past
playing.
anything in Skyrim with the sword.
Right. Yeah. You can most killing most things in Skyrim gets you to the end of the story.
Yeah,
That's fine. You can brute force through that game or through any Elder Scrolls game or through especially something like God of War.
an amazing example though of the opposite of that. Right now, one of the games that I'm running on Saturday nights is a Wild Beyond the Witchlight. They
Mm.
have no frontline fighters. They also have no healers currently.
Ooh.
Yeah. The
Mm.
closest thing they have is a
Ooh.
paladin that keeps using his lay on hands to try to keep the group up. And
Right.
he's not the way he built his character, he's not one of the traditional frontline brute type paladins.
Sure.
And where he's been doing a lot of the healing, he hasn't been filling that role. But it's like a paladin, two bards, a rogue, and a ranger, I believe. No, wizard.
So
Wizard. He's a wizard.
I was gonna say, I was like, okay, so between a ranger and a paladin and a couple of bards, you have half a cleric, but you don't have the ranger, so you've got a quarter of a cleric.
Something like.
Because
But they're
bards get a
talking
little something, don't they? They get a little something to help recover.
Song of
Isn't it?
Rest.
I was gonna say, Song of Rest. I think is about it. Is about it.
And I haven't encountered them both trying to use Song of Rest in the same short rest, so we'll have to see how that goes. Would I give them
I
both?
mean,
But either way, my point of bringing
yeah.
them up is
Mhm.
they are taking almost the opposite approach. Instead of brute forcing their way through everything, they're trying to see if they can maneuver their way out of everything, which is
Well, yeah.
great.
Right. If they're trying to talk their way out of most fights, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
To quote a movie that if people have seen, they know what I just said. Um, so when it comes to the bad behavior, to continue on with the main topic,
sure.
when it comes to the bad behavior of a min maxer, someone who just shuts down the moment anything doesn't go like the way of combat or the way of whatever, which is a behavior I've definitely encountered multiple times. Um, I think where a min max becomes a problem player is where they start breaking the immersion of the party, of the entire table, when they start dragging people down.
Sure.
It's like at this point, do we talk to that player? Do we talk to them in front of the whole group? Do we pull them aside later on? I don't
Yeah,
know. You might have to. When
you
someone's
might.
destroying the verisimilitude of what's going on,
If there's
ouch.
some way to address it in game, I would prefer to take that approach. If we can make adjustments,
Mm,
like we said, to put them in situations that might force them to do something different. But again, I've seen so many people giving advice to DMs on you basically need to uh, crush that character in some way, show
ooh.
them that they're not the biggest or things like that. Or, oh,
Well,
you got a min maxer, then bust out, 6 Tarrasques and show them who's it's like, no,
no,
that
no, one Trask is enough. Um,
uh, Tarrasque or whatever aside,
mm,
that's not the way to do this.
no,
And if it comes down to it, yes, talking to them is a
yeah,
great alternative. Obviously, maybe they
mm,
don't know that they're causing these problems, so that's something to do. But even aside from it, trying to instead encourage them into different behavior
mm,
through the course of
mm-hmm,
the game by giving
mm-hmm,
them
mm-hmm.
different options, things like that. Um,
Absolutely.
I know I had one party at one point that was a little bit kill happy, and they were still level 1. Maybe I'd given them level 2 at this point in a homebrew game, and
I love
I
that you
made.
said give them level 2. I appreciate that. You're allowed to have this.
But they came in front of this one character that I had to look at them because I'd played with this group before, and I looked at them dead in the eyes and just went, "You cannot take this guy. Don't even try."
Ooh, just as the DM, just like, yeah, no, you're going to die when you walk through that door.
Well, and then it
And,
helped that I did a cutscene for type scenario for them a few minutes later where the guy took a perfectly full health, slightly healthier than a commoner type, and in one foul swoop just twisted his neck off. It was
oh, okay.
when he can do
Yeah.
that without having to roll a die. Yeah, okay, we're not going to pick a fight with him.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I think a really great demonstration of that is episode 1 of the Chain of Acheron. I don't know if you've ever watched that.
No,
It's Matt Colville's. I don't know if you know who Matt Colville is. The
I got
other
research to
the other
do.
Matt, the other big Matt that runs D&D on the internet.
Hey,
Not nearly.
we can't be talking shame and body shape and stuff. No.
Actually, he is larger now that
Oh, now I
you
feel
say
bad
that.
about that. Okay, we'll edit
No,
that
it's
part
okay.
out.
He points it out all the time.
Oh,
He calls himself the big bugbear because he's got a big bushy beard and
oh,
long hair. um, but he's a fantastic DM. And in the first episode, I'm not. This isn't spoilers. This happens in 10 minutes. He like has us has the main bad guy that he's doing like a foreshadowing thing where he brings in the main
sure.
bad guy for the whole campaign. Has that dude summon like an archdemon, I think,
Okay.
something big, and like he just drops in this massive mini that's on a base that's like, I think by like D&D rules it's gargantuan.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, big. Has it scoop up one of the player characters and bite its head off. Like that player was in on it, but the rest of the group didn't know, and they all went, "We gotta run,"
Yeah,
because he just
you ain't
grabs
kidding.
him and goes, "Ow!" And they're like, "We can't take that." Like
No.
that's the same kind of way where they're like, because they're all like level 4, level 5. They're like, "We can kind of take this stuff," and then this happens. They're like, "Can we kill that?" And then that happens. They go, Nope.
Nope, nope.
Nope. No, we can't. No, kind of run. It's like that's a really great way to like shape the behavior. I like that you brought that up because that's actually better than I think just being direct with the group. The only time I've done that was as a doing super old school D&D. You're kind of supposed to.
Sure.
You're supposed to be like an arbitrator. It's what back in the day was we weren't Dungeon Master wasn't a thing until first edition. You were called a referee.
Okay.
You're supposed to like arbitrate and like kind of cooperate to some extent with the players. Like you're not supposed to give them insider information, but if you remember something their characters remember, you just tell them.
Right. And that's how I play it.
Right. And I didn't used to do that until I started really getting into old school D&D and I was like, "Oh, you can just do that?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And that does solve a lot of problems
We're
at the table
telling a
for sure.
story together, and that's the point. And every story needs a brute for it, you know?
Right. Right.
So
I think well, I was just going to say I think it boils down to if they become a problem at the table, you treat them like any other potentially problem player, from the person who cheats on their die rolls to the person who just refuses to work with the team and tries to go off and have their own side adventure. It's like, okay, well then your character has that side adventure, roll someone new and play with the party. Which I've told players that before. It's like, you want to have a side adventure, that's great. You and I can role play that out. We can have a great time, but we're playing together. So, yeah, it's a really big thing to try to break that character out of the prison that is their character sheet, and it's it's hard. But when you unlock that, you can really see the sparks start to happen. And I've seen so many players go from "I've got to be this thing" to "Oh, I can be anything." Like you're not locked into being Legolas. You could be whatever you want.
sure.
I think that's huge. I think that's really huge. And we could probably go on forever about this,
Yeah.
but I think we're supposed to do like other things,
Yeah,
like
like, talk about our sponsor.
right, which that's now, right? That happens
Yeah,
now.
that happens now.
Okay, that happens now. Okay.
This broadcast is not sponsored by CHIP, the Cleric Health Insurance Plan. This broadcast is not sponsored, but if it were, I could tell you about how CHIP will be there for all your healing and resurrection needs. Have a party that likes to get into scrapes? We'll install a cleric into your group just to keep them alive. Barbarian lose half his hit points? Paladin have a crisis of faith? Druid stuck in wild shape again? Not a problem for a chip-backed cleric. And should they ever fail to meet your needs, the resurrection is on us. Resurrection will still require you to provide a diamond of sufficient value. It cannot be held responsible for any of the above terms if you break the tenets of your cleric's faith, get banished to another plane, cast fireball, or get yourself erased from the timeline. And while the Cleric Health Insurance Plan is not sponsoring us, they are there for you. They could have sponsored this broadcast if only the wizard hadn't cast fireball. And now that we got that taken care of, so this is the part of the show where we talk about stories, comments, and things like that we found throughout the internet, on the Discord, things like that. So if you want your story shared in here, leave it in the comments below, share it on Discord, send it to us in a private message.
Absolutely.
All right, so what do you got for us? You said you had a story pulled up.
Yeah, I've got a great one from Reddit user the Onin. So this is so good. They say, "I gave my party gems of wild magic. Consuming the items let them roll on the wild magic table on use. Mostly they've been amusing and pointless, but one successful roll ended up in some hilarity.
Oh, I
They
bet.
threw a gem at an animated armor.
Okay.
They rolled and got you cast polymorph on yourself and turn into a chicken. Since it was centered on the armor turned into a chicken, and it started causing all kinds of havoc, freaking out, running around, as a chicken might do. The Aarakocra calmed the chicken down, as an Aarakocra might do. Then they decided to eat the chicken. Of course, the moment they roasted the chicken, it turned back into an animated armor and continued to try to kill them.
Oh
Now,
no.
I don't think you could have run that whole sequence of events any better.
No, seriously.
That is so good, and
Why
like
why is
true
this
to form
chicken
with
so
Polly.
crunchy?
The moment they applied fire to it. Of course, chicken takes fire damage, which breaks polymorph. I
Well,
mean, yes.
having raised fowl in a past life here, they were cooking it with the feathers on.
I'm guessing.
They were
I don't know how they plucked it
they were
without
cooking it
that causing damage.
live.
Apparently, I don't know why they wouldn't just cut the head off. How many hit points does a
Jeez,
chicken have? A quarter of a hit point? Like it's a
something.
chicken.
Oh my
having
word.
having having butchered chickens before on a chicken farm, like the most humane way to do it is to just cut off the head because they
Mhm.
feel nothing. So I'm curious, how did they just throw it on the fire? Like,
Seriously. Well, I
I
got this
I
pan
don't
here. Let's just toss it in.
know. Let's see what happens. Dance, chicken.
This is how
I
you
don't
make
know.
popcorn chicken, right? You just keep it moving.
Oh man,
That was an
popcorn
age
chicken.
test on our viewers, seeing
Oh, that's good.
see who's gonna know Jiffy Pop.
Or an air popper. Try to stuff a whole chicken into an air popper. See what happens. Get in. I had an air popper. Yeah, it was good
Yeah,
times.
we did too.
Yeah.
Um, if at the end you could send me the link to that story too, so I can
Oh,
pull.
absolutely. I will send it to you now.
Sweet.
Yep.
All right, so I've
All
got
right.
one.
Hit us with
Um,
yours, man.
sure. This one's a little bit different because it was actually asking for advice, and that's kind of where I thought
Mm.
I might chime in here. Uh,
Yeah, I like
pe-
it.
People have given advice, and I think they ended up getting the right advice here. But it's from user Tasty Stomach 5350.
Do they eat haggis?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So I know how this sounds. I'm a player, not a DM. So it really doesn't feel like my place to ask. If this is inappropriate, I won't do it. So my group of I can English. So my group
Sometimes.
consists of 3 players and a DM. Our DM, another player, and I are all super excited for the next campaign, but the third player almost never has time to meet, and I honestly feel that this group is at the bottom of her list of priorities. We sometimes go for months without meetings because she has no time for us. So I recognize I'm not in the position to make decisions, but I'd really love to have a regular meeting time. If it doesn't have to be every week or every other week, it could even be once a month if that's what the DM wants. I also struggle a lot with depression, and it really helps to have a set date to look forward to, even if it's a little further away. Would I be out of line asking for this?
Can I give a short one syllabic answer?
I think it's the same as mine. Go ahead.
No.
Yeah. No, I think your biggest problem there was right at the beginning when you say it is not my place. You're wrong. It's anybody's place at the table. And
Yep.
I'm
It's
actually
your game as much as it's anybody else's game.
I made a video on that, just a short little one where I did a TTRPG help desk video, and you know, what can I do to help out my DM? Planning when the events happen, when you get together,
Mm.
does not have to be a DM's job. Everybody
It
seems to think it has to be.
controversial statement. It shouldn't be.
I don't think that should be controversial.
It sadly is. I think the players should tell the DM when they want to play, and the DM goes, "All right, I got time on like you guys want to do Tuesdays? Okay, I got time next Tuesday."
Sure. It should be a group decision. One
Yeah,
thing that I've pulled out from that we started doing for the Glory Roll podcast when we were doing that was we assigned several different people different jobs. I, as the DM, was writing the story, and I was also the producer for it, so I was shooting the videos and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that was my plate. But we assigned somebody that was in charge of helping us get food for the night. It was
sure.
their job to look up stuff and what we were going to eat for the night. The group as a whole made the decision, but they were in
Mhm.
charge of spearheading that effort. We had somebody else that we called the snack master, who was in charge of making sure snacks arrived for in
Mhm.
game. They didn't bring it every week, but they pointed out, like, okay, you two bring this next week and make sure you don't both bring a bag of chips.
Right.
who's bringing drinks, who's doing this. So we assign that to somebody. And we had another person that was supposed to help me with music. Didn't end up happening, but they were supposed to help me get together a musical playlist that we could combine. Doesn't mean they know the plot or anything or what's going to come next, but they would help
Sure.
me make different music sets based on what the players like to hear. Now I've got a music library that I can hit. Okay.
Right.
I need tense music. Hey, look, a folder. Click, click. Good. We're going.
Absolutely. I have one playlist that I use.
I need to make
I
a
may
few
or may
different
not
ones.
have it on in the background right now.
There you go. So no, for this person, it sounds like you've got a player that it's not their top priority, which happens. So I would say, set a regular time. If they can make it, great. Don't set it and try to exclude them. Work with them the best you can. But
Right.
that being said, if it works best for the rest of the group, which I know for me it usually works best, you need a set date and time. So set it.
Yep.
Set it.
But don't set it and forget it. That's a different thing altogether. Yeah,
Indeed.
I couldn't say anything better. I think you just and then if you TPK wipe, don't kill that player's character. They weren't there.
Right. So that's what I do a lot of times when somebody goes missing for a session or something, just couldn't make it for one reason or another. I just let them fade into the background.
They're the torchbearer, or they're watching the back door, or
they're
whatever.
distracted with something or whatever. If
Right.
you happen to be starting that particular session in like the bar or something and are about ready to head out, maybe they want to go off and do a little side thing before they catch up with the rest of the group. Okay, easy enough.
Right.
But if you're mid cave or dungeon or something, you can't exactly do that. So we just kind of forget they exist for a session.
Right. Yeah. It's as simple as they just fade into the background of whatever that background needs to be.
Or some DMs decide to DMPC them for a round, or whatever.
Yeah. If when you've got really experienced players all around, it's really easy to either have the DM play them or just another player that knows, like, I know how your character acts, what they would choose to do. I got you this time around.
Right.
Especially we do it like, especially if someone's got to run to the bathroom. It's as simple as they just look at someone and go, roll for me, and they run. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Easy to do. Absolutely easy to do. You've got to just play.
Yeah.
Just play. Just roll some dice and play.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think that's it for tonight's thing, unless you've got something else for this one.
I don't. I think that's it. I think we've said our piece. If we said anything you agree with, tell us. If we've said anything that you disagree with, absolutely tell us.
Oh yeah.
And we can chat about that in Discord, in the comments, wherever, all of the places. I think you know how to find us. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
And
you can find my links and Zoff's links down in the description below, as well as links to merch and ways to help support this podcast so it can continue to grow. But other than that, we will see you next week.
Absolutely.